And boom to the bang, what's taking place in this place? You already know what it is. It's your boy, Richie Rich, back again with another podcast. So, guys, this podcast is more or less going to be somewhat more on the father figure side, right? So, we all know that there are a lot of youths out here that maybe need that male figure to look up to in their life. For like examples, things, showing you ways to handle certain situations, developing yourself, focusing on yourself, being a better version of yourself. I'm hoping that in my podcast, I could reach at least a couple of y'all. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, if you need any advice. You know what I'm saying? Let's get to it. I am here for it. All right. So most of the topics that I will be talking about would be things that I went through myself personally, from way back, come right up to present time. Because, if I could be real, if I could be honest, you all know Richie Rich came from very humble beginnings. And when I say humble beginnings, I mean humble beginnings. I'm talking about born and raised in Laventille. Used to live in a house. Back then you used to get talks with, they used to call it board house. You walk too hard, your foot could go through the floor. There were days where we didn't get anything to eat, because the struggle was real. My mom's was holding down 2 jobs. Now, if I try to tell you about my mom, that is like a whole topic by itself, because my mom is literally a miracle, right? She was supposed to be dead a long time ago. She was born with a hole in her heart. She spent most of her earlier years in one of those homes, kind of like a hospital. So, she kind of missed out on her school years, but she didn't let that stop her at all. So like when she was capable of, coming outside, doing certain things, the first thing she did was went to further herself to the point where she got her degree and then she was pursuing her master's. So yeah, that right there was one of the best examples I've had in the earlys. And then later on, my dad showed me what it was to be a man. We're talking about provider, protector. He started working offshore, and he was one of those guys where if he could spend all his time offshore, he would do it just to make sure that we had. You know what I mean? So, and he used to tell it to me, it's like I used to miss him. Sometimes he'll be gone for 6 months at a time. In the earliest, it was like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. But he always negotiating for more time outside. And he always tell me, say, yo, if I could spend like 5 years out there straight, I would do it. And mom's had access to his account, so his money will go to the account and she will be able to fix up things in the house, buy groceries, all these different things, send us to school, get school supplies. And I don't know, I was always the observant one. Like I always used to be paying attention in the background, figuring stuff out, trying to learn what I could learn. And like one of the things my dad was very strict on was schoolwork. So there was one thing that he told me that always stuck with me, which was, if you're not first, you're last. And I'll tell you where that came from. I actually get licks for coming second in tests, right? And I made a promise that was never going to happen again. Usually come first. The guy who beat me that one time literally beat me by 2 marks. And I think that is what pissed my dad off the most. And when he said it, like it's so keen, but the man said, if you're not first, you're last. And I know a lot of people may want to criticize that, but I think my dad knew how to reach us because I was into sports, I was into martial arts, so I was always competitive. And maybe that was something I needed to hear to get that competitive spark going. And it worked. It worked because I gave 110% every single time. I just didn't want to be that guy who everybody be like, loser or whatever. That was the mindset at that time. Now, I believe my dad was like true alpha male. When I say alpha male, I mean alpha male. And I'm talking about the social media version of alpha male. I'm talking about literal provider, literal protector. Because my dad was actually a black belt and he had his own dojo. He used to teach. So he started teaching us from very young. Like from the time he started walk, it was on and popping, you know. And me and my brother will always practice on each other. You know, my sister, she was into it too, but, you know, I think she was more the wrestling side. Like, you rush my sister, you could get a body slam. But we were fighting family, but never bullies. As a matter of fact, I would have quicker stand up to a bully on behalf of somebody who was being bullied. And these are things my father used to teach. Now, identity and masculinity these days, there's a very thin line where people might confuse it for narcissists. You know, like some people say, yeah, he is a narcissist. So like there's a very thin line between the two. And I mean, I am not here to break it down in terms of the definition. I believe it's more or less straightforward. Everybody has Google, everybody has smartphones, everybody probably have access to the internet. These are things you could research for yourself. Like there's a clear definition for narcissist, there's a clear definition for, being the alpha male, right? We're talking about strength as self-control, not aggression. You know, being confident without needing to dominate others, responsibility, taking ownership of your choice, not blaming or having excuses, showing up for work, family, community, even when you don't feel like it. You know, doing the hard, boring things that keep life stable. We have work ethics, of course, money, you know. So like for me who came from very little, how you handle being broke without quitting, how to build discipline at work, even in jobs you don't like. Basics of saving, avoiding debt traps, and living below your means. Also living above your means. Protecting through wisdom, avoiding dumb situations, not just fighting. Standing up to injustice or bullying, you know what I'm saying? Even when it's uncomfortable. Protecting your own mind from addictions, and the list goes on. And all these are things I'm going to break down in future episodes. So consider this the intro, but I'll say this is the end of episode 1, and we'll come with so much more in episode 2 and beyond. So guys, be sure to tune in, subscribe, get yourself locked in, because I'll try to drop, at least one every other day, or at least twice a week. All right. So stay tuned. Boom to the bang.